Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Happy Friday, Aki.
Happy Friday, Stevie. How are you?
Hello. I'm well, thank you. I'm well. How are you?
Also well. My coffee is lukewarm, just how I like it, and we are here. Also, how I like us.
I don't think you can see. I can't. Here. No.
What's happening?
This is. I don't know. I'm trying to show you my toy, and it's a.
It's
like a
still
circular.
not on screen.
I know. I can't really. Never mind.
I'm trying to lean to see it, which doesn't make sense.
It's a. It look. Fuck! I can't do it. Never mind. It's a little thing, and I put coffee on it and keeps it warm.
Oh, that's nice. You got a little coffee heater. Coffee. It keeps it, I assume, at an ideal temperature.
At an ideal temperature, so I can drink my coffee for a long time because I'm a slow drinker.
As am I.
Ah.
Yeah.
And then it stays at a nice temperature consistently until I finished.
Oh, wow. Are you doing
Happy
an ad
days.
for it? Your
No.
voiceover there. That was beautiful. Stays at a consistent temperature until I'm finished. Anyway.
Well, you and I could both do it. I think we should team up.
Yeah, we should
create a production company. We talked about this.
We should just do voiceover commercials, the two of us. Yeah. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen and people of all ages, welcome to Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. Today's stardate is stardate 215030.8, and we're discussing Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 5, entitled Stardust City Rag.
Does anyone else think it's Stardust City Rag?
I mean, now I can't not. Because you did that.
It's Stardust City Limits. Never mind. It's a great song.
It's Nevermind. It's a great song. And Nevermind. It's a great ep. It's a great episode.
It is a great ep. Yeah.
We get a whole lot of a certain character that we're all very thrilled was involved in the. We should. You know what? Let's just. Because it starts with
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Just do it.
Who do we have, Aki?
As you may recall, at the end of the last episode, a certain character beamed aboard and then passed out. That was none other than it's 7 of 9. 7 of 9. Jerry Ryan herself, returning to the small screen, reprising her role as 7 of 9, only now long of hair and much more, I would like human-ish, a little more badass.
She's pissed.
She's not happy.
No.
There's a lot to unpack there, and of course, and you know what? We'll unpack it for the whole episode. Let's do it. Yeah.
Do you want to do your starting hour or after when?
Oh, I did the start date.
Did you? Oh, sorry. I was focusing on my buttons.
You phased out while I was reciting a long string of numbers. How dare you?
Oh, sorry.
It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me? Talk about Picard now. Run it down for me.
Star Trek Picard.
There we go. Thank you. I think it's better when you do it. All right. So today we're talking about episode 4, Stardust City Rag. I'm going to make my screen big so that there's less glare off my glasses, but only slightly less. And we begin with a flashback 13 years ago on the planet Vergessen, I guess. I'm guessing. On the planet Vergessen in the Hypatia system, a person is strapped to a table and they're looking around and there's blood everywhere, and then someone rips their eye out with an eye thing and they scream, there's no anesthetic. And when they pull the eye out, we see that it's connected to some Borg implants. So this is a Borg. And we see actually that the Borg is Brunali. And
With the big nosy thing.
yes, exactly. And in Star Trek, they're really like they're like, this is an alien. It's either ears, nose, forehead,
Or
those are the defining
reptilian.
features. Or yes, the rep. Well, we have a rep. Yes, indeed. Anyway, he's being ripped apart by some weird scientists, and then someone shows up, and he's and they go Bajazel, and then instead pew pew out of the darkness, both scientists who are about to cut this guy even more up. Yes, face of fire. Show up and they die, and then who should emerge from the darkness but a 13 years previous 7 of 9.
Shall we do the big?
7 of 9.
Should we do the big one?
So I think we should save the big one
Save the big
for the ending, if you catch my drift. Well, pew pew pew. Okay, so 7 of 9 shows
We
up.
would have been friends as 5-year-olds. I think
Yeah,
that's self-evident.
and it would have sounded the same. 7 shows up, and she's like, "Oh no, what have they done to you?" He's like, "You gotta go now." And I don't know if she says that it's Icheb then. I wrote down
She
Icheb because I knew.
did.
She says
Yeah,
Icheb, right? So you know it's
she
Icheb
does
then.
say Icheb, yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because all kinds of throws forward, but the last watch party that we did, teleparty, was Voyager episodes, and they were from the last season, and they both had Icheb
They did have
sort of
Icheb.
prominently figured in them.
She was
Although,
skiving off work and Icheb was covering.
yeah, because she was getting, her rocks off with old.
Human error, I
Chakotay.
believe that was called.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She was having book times with imaginary Chakotay. Okay, so Icheb is like, "You got to go." She's like, "I'll stay with you." He says, "No, you got to leave now." So she like puts him out of her misery, and then she says, "I'm sorry, my child." And then boom, a smash cut to now-ish, and it's Bruce Maddox, and he's shown up in a place, and he asks for Bajazel, and someone says to this character that we now know is Bajazel, because they go Bajazel, and she turns around and she goes, "What?" And they go, "Bruce Maddox is here," and she goes, "Oh, too bad, kill him." And then she goes, "Wait, I have a better idea." And then she shows up and she's like, "Oh, hey, Bruce." And he's like, "Oh, the Tal Shiar ruined my lab and everything's all screwed up and stuff. And I'm sorry, I can't pay you back the money from your loan." And she's like, "Oh, it's cool. Here, have a drink." And he's like, "Oh, thanks." Glug, 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 glug. And she's like, "Who did it?" And he's like, "Oh, the Tal Shiar." And she's like, "Oh, that makes things interesting." And then he's like, "Huh, cough, cough, cough," collapse.
That's
And
pretty
that-
accurate.
That's the cold open. Yeah, that's right. I may have listened to the last episode. Like every 5 or 6 episodes, I listen to a full episode of our show, and I realize how manic
do.
my storytelling is. Yeah, you do an excellent job of making it seem like I'm not an insane person. But there's a lot of voices that I don't remember doing.
Oh,
that
I
get-
love
Yeah.
them.
Woo. Anyway,
Entertains me.
yeah, I was listening to the last episode, and I was like, there's 5 discrete people.
Oh, but see, now I've figured out how to pan voices. So now when you
yes.
do more voices, I can just pan you off against yourself.
It's truly
Coming in
alarming.
from all angles.
This is a codependent relationship, and both of us have issues, but it's working out so far. All right, so we begin the episode proper. Picard is in his fake chateau on the ship, La Sirena, and 7 comes in, and he's like, "Oh, 7, are you feeling better?" And she's like, "Yes, I feel better." And he's like, "Can I offer you a drink, wine, some other fancy things?" She goes, "Bourbon straight up." And she guzzles the pour that he gives her right away, knocks it right back. And they have a sort of a brief discussion that lets you know what 7 has been up to. She's part of the Fenris Rangers, who apparently have been in this sector they stepped up to help with the evacuation when Starfleet stopped, and they have been sort of like a vigilante justice for the sector, kind of fighting against the Tal Shiar and other powers that be. And Picard does not quite seem to approve of their methods. He appreciates their mission, but he thinks they take the law into their own hands. And he says that to 7, and 7 says, "What law?" And he says, "Touche." And she says, "What the hell are you doing out here, Picard?" And he's like, "I'm trying to help somebody who couldn't help themselves, and she may end up dead without me." And she goes, "Tell me more." Meanwhile, Raffi is doing some research, and Rios comes up, and they talk. And basically, Raffi... Rios is upset that Seven and Picard are talking. He's like, he has no idea what they're talking about. And Raffi mentions that they both are ex-Borg, which is technically true, because Picard was Locutus, was supposed to be the lieutenant, the second in command of all Borg in the Alpha Quadrant, and actually 7 of 9 was assimilated when she was a child. And that becomes something of note later on in the episode. So Jean-Fille, when she was a Jean-Fille, as Picard says in his evil Picard getup with the when we get disguises later.
I didn't think his French accent was that convincing, which was surprising.
It was awful. I think it was deliberately supposed to be over the top.
All right.
Yeah. It's interesting to note, though, that as I recall in the first season pilot of TNG, it was debated whether he would use a French accent the whole time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
It was also debated whether he would have hair.
It was debated whether he would have hair. I'm so glad Picard with hair. Jurati in the meantime, Dr. Jurati, in the meantime, is in her quarters, looking at some old video of her and Bruce Maddox, and he's showing her that he baked cookies, and she's laughing about it, and then they eat the cookies, and they kind of like half make out or something. So anyway, now we know their relationship was not purely professional, if you catch my drift.
We did.
You catch my drift? Okay. All right. Yeah, that's right. They were smooching. And so obviously she has some feelings. They arrive at Freecloud. And they are connected by the planetary net, and the ship is flooded with advertisements because it's like a casino planet. And so there's like ads for Rios, and there's ads for Picard to have high tea at some restaurant, and there's ads for Raffi to get a little snake bit, do her snake weed or whatever that stuff is called. And for Jurati, there's a thing about fighting robots, which I didn't fully understand. But anyway, she punches a holographic robot's head off. Yeah. You think it was supposed to be a targeted ad? Why
Maybe it was about robots. Possibly.
I guess, yeah, because she's a cybernetics person, I guess.
I mean, I wonder, it's, targeted ads like Amazon, I suppose.
Oh, hello. Mm-hmm. Preach. So Raffi's able to find out where Maddox is, but it's not as simple as we know, because we saw the cold open. Maddox has been taken captive by this Bajazil.
Bajazil.
I cannot believe that is her name.
Have you,
Yes.
You do know what okay.
And yes.
Okay.
And yes.
Just checking.
And that is why I was like, you didn't run this by anybody?
Must be somebody British who works on that show.
Yeah, you would think. But in any case...
Is it an American thing as well? I thought it was just British.
I think it
was so
don't
tacky,
know if it's an American
British.
thing. But I do know some Americans who know about it. I've heard it. It's mostly British people that I know who...
Should we... In case, listener, you are not familiar with what on earth we were talking about, we were talking about the
translate.
Term Vajazzle. Now, I'm not going to explain what it is. You can just go and Google that yourself.
Nor am I going to explain what it is.
If you want to know, you can Google that.
Go have fun with that word.
Please make sure your kids are asleep and your boss is out of the room, and then go ahead and Google Vajazzle.
Vajazzle. Oh, by the way, Google Images. That'll really set you right.
No, why would you do that?
I'm sorry.
Oh, goodness.
Sorry.
Never, ever. Look, rule of thumb, outside of Star Trek Picard or this podcast, rule of thumb, if you're Googling something, never start with images. Never, ever start with images.
Especially if it's medical.
Yeah. If it's not like a person or like a monument, just never start with images. Never do it. Never start with images. Okay.
Where
was I? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, her name is Bajazil. So
that's right. That's how we went off on that tangent.
I'll try not to find it puerilely funny.
She's only in one episode, so we only have to get through this.
That's true. And they call her Jay, which is a lot better, but it's very hard to forget Bajazil when you hear it too many times.
Because initially I heard Vajazzle, which was so similar.
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
Vajazzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, so this Bejazel character has Bruce Maddox and is looking for a, quote, facer, which is a sort of an intermediary go-between to help her sell or trade Maddox to the Tal Shiar who want him. And
broker.
A broker, yes. But they call them facers. I guess because they meet face to face. They do your face for you. If you want to do some skullduggery, cloak and dagger stuff. So Raffi's able to hack into the net and hack the mainframe and all the stuff that hackers do. And she's like, okay, I've got us a meeting, but we need something. We can't pay. We can't trade. What will we do? And then Seven says something and goes, oh, I know who Bejazel is. We can give her something she wants, something that she would give anything for. And they go, who? Setting her up. And she knocks it out of the park. She says, me. So, now begins probably my favorite part of this episode, the plan. I love a good caper. And this is totally got the caper thing. Like, the caper's happening, but also you flash back to when they're talking about how to do the caper. But essentially, it revolves around them pretending they have Seven hostage. And she's wearing like handcuffs that if she pushes them together, she can get out of them. And also she has a pattern, what do you call it? Enhancer that allows them to, when they get to Bruce Maddox, they can like zip out of there, all 5 of them, despite the security net. But first they have to go down and pretend to be facers. So they send in Rios as a facer and Picard as like the evil bounty hunter. So they're wearing ridiculous disguises. And I wouldn't even know how to describe what they make Rios wear. He looks sort of like...
He looks like a pimp.
He looks like a pimp at a child's birthday party or something. It's absurd.
I thought he looked like one of the pimps from Crocodile Dundee.
Sure, that
Remember
works too. Yes,
Yeah.
sadly.
An 80s pimp, not just a regular pimp, but a 1980s pimp
1980s,
from a cartoon.
Yes, Hollywood cartoon level pimp. In
Yeah.
fact, that's not enough because as they're discussing it, Raffi's like, you got the clothes and you go down there, but you can't be like a brooding saddle spaceman. You got to be like one of these facers. You got to be flamboyant and big, and you got to have over the top. And Seven says, you need a feather in your cap. So they put a ridiculously long bird feather in his hat, and he goes in. Well, fortunately, he's able to have his signature cigar as he walks into the club, and he says, hey, I'm Rios, and he orders a drink. I think it's called a Temp-Tibi Lagoon, and he goes, with 2 umbrellas. And he's supposed to meet a Mr. Vup when he's there. So we find out that Bejazel has several people in her employ, and one of them is one of these Beta Anari, which is sort of like a sentient lizard, which apparently can smell when you're lying and when you're nervous and the last thing you ate and if you've had sex with anybody. Like just a lot of receptors. Sense. Yeah, kind of like Linus from Discovery with Bands of Light. Right?
Indeed.
So
well,
they're like,
suppose, if you're lying, you sweat.
Yeah,
if you've had sex, you've got pheromones going off, and obviously what you've eaten.
I mean, yeah.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. Anyway, Raffi's like, you should stay away from this guy. But it turns out the Mr. Vup that he's there to meet, that is the facer for Bejazel, is Mr. Vup is... Yeah, I know. It makes me want to just keep arranging my glasses nervously every time I say Bejazel.
Every time you say it, I have to snicker.
And I have to. Anyway.
A little hot under the collar, but
yes, I get a bit, I feel a bit, so I feel a bit, and I won't finish the sentence. So he is to talk to this Vup, and the Vup thinks that he's there to trade to the Tal Shiar, but then Rios is like, no, I got something even better, and he shows him the scan of Sevens. I keep calling her Nines because of nine, which we'll get to later, of Seven's implants, and they're like, whoa, that's a lot of implants, because Bejazel's whole thing is that she likes to find Borg and cut them up and use their parts and sell them because they go for so much money there because the Romulans in the sector dig them for some reason, which is part of why the artifact is a big deal. Nota bene, we don't even mention the artifact in this episode. So he's there. He gets the interest of this Mr. Vup, Beta Anari, and so they bring down Seven and Seven's handler, the evil handler is Picard with a scar on his cheek and an eye patch and an awful French accent. Like way over the top. Jeune fille. And he plays it to the hilt. He's like just a snide, awful, gross, piratey kind of man. He's like, bog, that's so disgusting. Like his accent's better than that, but not much.
Not much.
Not much better than that.
I mean, I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, that's probably the kind of French accent I would do.
Yes, it's not. Well, it happened. It's good fun. I forgot to mention, this is a Frakesy episode, so obviously this is all done.
Makes sense.
With beautiful cuts, and it's very fun and funny. And when problems come up, you flash back to Raffi saying, "Whatever you do, don't do this, and whatever you do this." So they're doing all that, and they get the interest, and that's where that goes. So now we switch to our B plot line, Raffi, because remember, she's like, "Just take me to Freecloud, and take me to Freecloud, and that's it. That's all I want. I don't want to be part of your stupid mission, JL." So she is looking up somebody named Gabriel Huang, and she leaves the ship and she goes to the Stardust City Reproductive Services area, and she sees the person she's been looking up. He's a young man. She walks up. She introduces herself. It quickly becomes evident that this is her estranged son, and she tries to convince him that she's clean, that she's traveled all this way to be with him again, that she's sorry for having lost her way, but that she's back. He's sort of not interested in any kind of reconciliation, but he seems like he might be slightly on the fence. He says, "So what?" Or at least he's like, "Tell me about, like, do you no longer believe in your crazy conspiracy theory that the whole thing with Mars was a conspiracy?" And he eggs her on, and she eventually erupts and says, like, it is still a conspiracy. I still believe that that's true. And so that ends that whole thing. Obviously, she traveled all this way to try and meet up with her son, and her son, who's married, I guess. I don't know. That's an assumption that as a Judeo-Christian descendant of Puritans, I assume, maybe not married, but anyway, his partner is with child, which is why they're at the reproductive services area, and that partner comes out. It's a Romulan, and apparently the child is a girl. And Raffi gets introduced by her son, but her son insists that Raffi can't stay, and it doesn't seem like the partner knows quite exactly what's going on with the relationship between the son and mother kind of situation. But he goes, "Great, she can't stay. She's just passing through. All right, see you later, Mom. Got to go. Bye." And so Raffi is left with her demons unfulfilled. And that was our B plot line. Back to the bar and the caper. So they've got Bejazel there, and they've got Nine with the hood over her head, and they pull the hood off, and Nine looks at Bejazel. Bejazel looks at Nine, and Picard thinks the whole thing is going, and then they realize, through the commentary between them, that this is not merely a ruse, or in fact, that the ruse was a double blind, because Seven knows Bejazel, that what the crimes that were committed in the cold open were not merely crimes of avarice, that this was a betrayal of friendship, perhaps even romantic love between Bejazel and Nine.
It does
It
look
seemed
a bit,
like that, right? I couldn't tell. And I
so
couldn't
much
figure out
tension.
in the timeline, was Bejazel like part of Fenris and then betrayed them for the money? Like they were together because that's why she knows about Icheb, and then she betrays Nine for Icheb? Like I don't fully understand how their relationship, like when it would have been like that they were close. But obviously they were very close. Yeah. So they are there not Seven is there not merely to be the bait for Picard so that they can get Maddox, who is there and all beaten up and he's on the couch and he's all jacked up, but also to settle a score with Bejazel. And so Seven escaped apparently, and her implants would be the most profitable for Jay. And just as this is all realized, Seven snaps out of her restraints and puts her hands around Jay's neck and forces all her people to put their guns down, and they're at a standoff there. Anyway, Picard checks in with Bruce. Bruce is okay. He's like a little out of it. He looks like he's been having the snot kicked out of him. And Seven says, "Okay, here, take the enhancer and leave me behind. I got a score to settle." And Jay says, "Yeah, she's trying to kill me." And Picard's like, "Well, wait. Why are you trying to kill? Why would you kill?" And then Seven tells him all about Icheb, and how he was, basically like she says like a son, which I guess is true. Their relationship was, I would call it more sibling-esque in Voyager, but
True. It was very mentory, I suppose.
it was very mentory, but they tease each other. Anyway, I understand. They was close as hell. And she basically cut him up without anesthetic or killing him first. Like while he was alive, they were ripping his implants out. And I gotta say, I mean, I love Picard, but kind of on Seven's side here. Someone brutally mutilates and tortures someone purely for profit, and you got your hands back on them. Ooh, it's gonna be hard to be like, you know what? Revenge is not worth it. I'm out of here. But so Picard's attempt to like dissuade Seven from killing Bjayzl right then and there does not really work. However, as they're having this conversation, the Beta Anari, the reptile that works for Bjayzl, tries to pull like a secreted weapon that's like one of those sleeve gun things out to shoot. But before he can do that, Rios, who is still there and has been communicating with Jurati via a mic hidden inside of the cigar, I love it, fires on the Beta Anari, Mr. Vup. Pew pew! 2 in the shoulders, knocks him down. He's out cold. Maybe dead? I don't know. Couldn't tell. And then he walks over and he says, listen, Seven, I get what you're saying. I'm hip to the revenge thing, but if you kill her, then there's going to be a bounty on all our heads. I don't care. But the old man and the kid, as he refers to Picard, and forgot the kid's name. It's lost in my head.
Which kid? Sorry?
The non
Soji.
Romulan warrior nun. No. Romulan warrior nun.
Elnor.
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 Killer warrior Romulan
nun.
nun. Say it with us, everybody. He's like, if you do that, these two, they'll be eating up for breakfast out here, basically. And so that sort of convinces her that maybe she shouldn't do this right now because putting the bounty on Picard. She's driven to have this vengeance, but she doesn't want to do it right there. I thought that was an amazing moment. And then Picard's like, listen, let's go. And Rio says, look, you found her once. You can find her again. And Seven, kind of like thinks about that and is like, yeah, okay, let's get out of here. So boom, they leave, right? They go back to the ship. Jurati, who was in charge of doing the transporter thing, gets them onto the ship. They take Maddox, who's completely jacked up, over to sickbay, and Picard's like, Rios, let's get the hell out of here as soon as possible. And then Picard's like, listen, Seven, I know it didn't work out for you, but we can offer you a ride at the very least as thanks for helping us find Maddox. And she says, hey, the Rangers have already sent my new ship for me, but if you don't mind, I would like to take a couple phase rifles. Someone like me could use weapons like that any given day. And Picard's like, all right, sure. Although I don't think those rifles were his to give. I think they belong to Rios, but whatever. He is like, sure. And then Picard didn't see this, but we see it, that she takes the little pattern enhancer that Jurati used to beam them up and palms it so that before she leaves, she and Picard share words and they question whether or not it's easy to recover one's, quote, humanity once they've been part of the Borg collective, and that it's a struggle every day to do so. And then she beams back down to the planet, unbeknownst to anybody, kills 2 of Jay's attendants. She makes everyone else clear the room. She talks to Jay back and forth. She's like, he was like a son to me. This is for him. Jay tries to stall by being like, it's like the old times when you had hope and I stole the hope from you, because she's obviously waiting for her second wave of security to arrive. And Seven says, I know your second wave is coming and this is for Icheb. Boom! Shoots her. She completely disapparates. Pew, 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 pew. And then all the people show up and Seven is just like, let's do this. Dun, dun, dun. Bum, 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 bum. Pew,
She just
pew,
walks
pew,
out
pew.
very casually. She's
Pew,
got
pew,
fire
pew,
coming at her
pew.
everywhere. And she's like,
Pew, pew, pew,
Wah.
pew. Yeah, because she's 7 or 9. She don't give a shit. And that is why we would now like to reveal to you our theme for 7 of 9's utter badassness and why I have trouble remembering the 7 of her name. Stevie, if you would. Here's the drop.
She's 7 of 9.
7 of 9.
7 of 9. 7 of 9.
So good.
Oh man, that's my best work to date. Period. End of story of all the things I've ever made music to do. There's no argument. I will never reach the height that I did with that 7 of 9, that 30-second 7 of 9 jam. Anyway, so 7 of 9, the last we see of her, she is shooting her way out through overwhelming forces very calmly, having achieved vengeance for Icheb. Correct, Eric. It's sick. So, back to the sick bay. Maddox is talking to Picard. He's asking Picard if Dahj is dead. Picard says, yeah, Dahj is dead. Picard asks Maddox, like, why did you make them? And so on and so forth. And he asks her, is there a sister? And Maddox says, there is a sister. The sister's name is Soji. She's on the artifact, which is the Borg cube. And the reason I sent one of them to Earth and one of them to the Borg cube is to find out the truth about the band, because he too believes that there is some hidden truth and that it's not just the Romulans. The Federation might be in on it also. Hit me with a dun dun dun, would you?
You want a dun dun dun?
I sure do. Yeah, that's right. We kind of knew that, but it's still exciting to hear. And then Girardi, who's been listening on the conversations, he says, oh, look, he needs to rest, Jean-Luc. And Jean-Luc says, okay, great. You rest. The computer help you. You've got all this internal bleeding and stuff like that. But I think you'll be okay. And he leaves. So Picard goes to the bridge. He talks to Rios. He's like, set a course for the cube. Rios is like, it's going to be double my price. Picard's like, come on. And Rios is like, hell yeah. And then he says, you want to talk about our stowaway? And Picard walks over to a door, which obviously Raffi's behind. He knocks on it. Raffi says, go away. Picard says, welcome back, under his breath. Back to Agnes and Bruce. Agnes is talking to Bruce, who comes back, and he's like, oh, Agnes, it was like a dream. Remember, they were all kissy, kissy, snoggy, snoggy, smoochy, smoochy earlier on in the episode. And he's like, oh, did you meet Dahj? She was wonderful. And Girardi's like, no, I never got to meet her. And he says, they're perfect, the sisters. They're perfect. They're perfectly imperfect. And he says, I did it. Me and Sung and your research were invaluable in being able to create Dahj and Soji. And Girardi says, it is one more sin for which she must atone. Say what? And he goes, what? What are you talking about? She goes, I wish, she says, quote, I wish you knew what I know. I wish I didn't know, but I know. I wish they hadn't shown me. And then she shuts off his life support systems and the EMH, which tries to intervene on his behalf, and watches him slowly die there on the slab. And that is the end of episode 5 of season 1 of Star Trek Picard. Pew, 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 pew. There's a traitor on board, a traitor, you hear me? And it's none other than Dr. Girardi.
Indeed.
Oh.
What has she been doing? Why did she do it?
Indeed. Well, what does she know that he doesn't know? Why does she wish she didn't know it? I mean, who showed it to her? They showed it to her. She wished she hadn't shown it, but they showed it to her. Who is it? Why? Who could it be?
Could it be?
Fum, fum, fum. Why not?
Do you want me to
Yeah, I don't know.
really?
I mean, yeah, please.
It was more fun to hear yours, but fine.
I'll sing along.
What were you saying earlier about overacting?
Who, me? What are you talking about? This is a totally grounded performance, as every week I deliver a grounded and rational relation of how the episode went. All right, let's move on to quotable moments.
Quotable. Never mind. I should just. Sorry. Quotable moments.
Yeah, but you nail it. You're like, it's like pitch perfect when you do it there. It's like, it's perfect.
A good mimic.
We talked about this. I only wrote down a couple of quotes. There's so many great moments in this episode.
That's what
Not
I
a lot of
said.
huge quotes, right? Yeah, no, I stole that from you. But now
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
knows I stole it.
Well, because I was going to steal a quote from you because I didn't have any quotable moments. I had memorable moments.
It must have been cold there in my shadow to never have sunlight on your face. I thought you were going to be the wind beneath my wings here. Which quote of mine would you like to steal?
Well, I don't know because you didn't tell me them.
Oh, no. I thought I did. Well, okay.
Did you?
Let's take... No, I didn't, for sure, because I don't know them. I have to read them. The one that I think is deserving of the Au Jean-Luc is his speech to Seven when she wants to kill Bjayzl. And he says, but murder is not justice. Oh, no, I'll do this as James Mason. He says, but murder is not justice. There's no solace in revenge. You have had your humanity restored to you. Don't squander it now.
Jean-Luc, sometimes I think the only reason I come here is to listen to these wonderful speeches of yours.
And the other quotes I would say would be the back and forth between Picard and Seven right before she goes back and kills everybody. When she asks him, after they brought you back from your time in the collective, do you honestly feel that you regained your humanity? And Picard says without hesitation, yes. And then Seven says without hesitation, all of it. And then with much hesitation, Picard says, no. But we're both working on it, aren't we? And Seven says, every damn day of my life. And then a little bit of the Voyager theme plays. Do, 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 do,
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well,
I'll have to go back and listen to that.
it's
Thank you.
so, and then she commits murder, or exacts revenge, commits justice. There are other good quotes, but I think there's cool. It's more interesting to talk about the moments. What moments did you like in particular in this episode?
I did quite like the sort of ridiculous dressing up thing. And it felt it almost felt sort of Ocean's 11, as you know, we had our little caper.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that, and sort of Raffi playing orchestrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think what I quite liked about we started to see Raffi become essentially a hacker. She's hacking into all of these different systems, and that's not something we've seen very physically manifested in Star Trek before. I think it's like it's all at a console, and we've never sort of seen the manifestation
they have,
of that.
heads up displays and stuff, and she's like moving through. Yeah. I thought that was cool. I loved obviously the dress up. I loved Rios acting
his
all
bad dancing when he was going in.
Yeah, he's like, all right, it's me. Give me that drink with 2 umbrellas. I thought it was cute that it took the entire explanation sequence for Elnor to understand what was going on.
Are we lying?
We're lying. You're all pretending not to be who you are. And they're all like, oh. And he goes, except for me. Why don't I get to be somebody? And they're like, he's like, I'm bad at being someone else. And they say, just be Elnor. And then Seven says, an Elnor that doesn't talk.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
And Elnor was dismayed that he didn't get something advertised to him.
Yes, that's right. He's sort of realizing that he's sort of left out. He's like, no, they didn't send any ads to me.
And why was that? Because he has no. Because surely it's based on personality.
Yeah. Also,
or is it based on what you are more vulnerable to?
I think it's probably based on. I mean, does he have any kind of technological footprint? He's like been gathering wood and collecting water from a well for his entire life. He's an orphan.
Fair point.
Or they're going to be like, hey, do you want to chop wood? Would you like to hear about some hopeless causes? Oh, I forgot to mention, it's not in my notes. How could I have forgotten this? Oh, no, I must have written it down. Doesn't matter. That right before Seven leaves, and this is important, spoiler alert, she says, if you ever need a vigilante, and she gives a little chit to Picard. Like, call me if you need me kind of thing. Which I'm sure is just one of those dangling plot threads that will never be tugged again.
Of course not.
Mm-hmm. Why would it be?
Why would it be?
And it was heartbreaking to see Raffi with her son. I thought that was really sad. That was a tough moment. Again, Frakesy, you do it just right. That's all I got.
All right.
Shall we move on to next time?
Let's do it.
Next time on Set Phasers. All right. Next time on Set Phasers, we will be discussing episode 6 of season 1 of Picard, entitled Mercurially, The Impossible Box. So that's going to happen. It may not be next week, however. We might be taking a week off because we have to do some logistics.
Things. I
so
have to energize somewhere else.
Yes, you've got to beam up and beam back down somewhere else.
Indeed.
I beam up, but I beam down again. You're not ever going to beam me up. Oh, that's not a great spoof. So we won't be having... we won't be doing an episode next week, but we will be back the week thereafter. However, we are doing a special something this Sunday for those people who are supporting us on Patreon. We're having a little viewing party, as we do once a month, usually on the first Sunday of the month. And we're getting together, and we'll on Teleparty, formerly known as Netflix Party, and we'll be watching an episode of TNG that we believe might become germane to the plot, as we have already been introduced to Hugh. We'd like to watch the episode entitled I, Borg, in which we are first introduced to Hugh.
Season 5, episode 23, first aired in 1992.
Get out, look at you. You can Google that. And I wonder if Hugh, that's season 5. So Picard is the first human that we know that has been assimilated that is completely, with air quotes, returned back to themselves. But Hugh is sort of the second, right?
I don't remember if we get Hugh's backstory, do we? As a human.
But we know, but we know that he was Borg and has been restored. And I think he's the first example of it, except for Locutus.
Indeed.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. We'll find out. We'll have to refresh our memories on that.
We'll find out on Sunday. And if you'd like to find out, you can support us on Patreon. And you'll get an invite. It'll be this Sunday, March 7th. At 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We get together, we chop it up, and usually, even though we're only supposed to watch one episode, we can't help ourselves, and we watch another episode. So it might be, a couple hours of kicking back and typing to each other and wishing that we were in space. Okay. Those are all the announcements. Then I will simply say thank you so much for joining us, and that if you enjoyed the program, you can catch us every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook Live, or as a podcast every Monday, wherever you get podcasts at.
Yes. We are, of course, on the Facebook and the Instagram at Set Phasers Podcast, so feel free to follow along and join in the conversation of all things Trek.
Meme Game Strong. I'm talking about Stevie. If you want to support
Strong.
Meme Game Strong, if you want to support our continuing mission to discover what Discovery has in store for us, or just hang out with us on a Sunday and watch Star Trek, we'd only be delighted. You can patronize us. We can take it by going to patreon.com/setphasers.
Indeed. Well, until next time, I'm Stevie Mans.
And I'm Aki Burmese. And this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.